Hello and welcome to your Summit Action Session. I'm Amanda Farmer, your Summit host and your Summit mentor, here this week helping you take action on all the fabulous learnings coming through from our Summit guest experts. It is day 2 of the Shared Space Summit. We released a further 2 summit sessions to our summit attendees this morning. Dr. Alex Morris on the reality of virtual meetings and Ethan Burns, sustainable apartment living made easy. If you are registered for the summit and if you haven't yet caught their sessions, check your inbox. Your special access link should be there waiting for you. If you didn't get that email and you are indeed registered for the summit, do let us know. You can pop us a message here or send us an email. We will get that link to you. Now, this live session this afternoon is all about getting clarity, cementing these ideas that we've been getting from our guest experts in the summit sessions. I think today we have had some really practical sessions from both our guests, Alex on meetings and Ethan on sustainability. I am really keen to hear your thoughts, your comments, what your takeaways have been. Very shortly, I am going to bring in 2 more special guests that I have for you here live today. I'm going to introduce them very soon. I would love to hear from those of you who are here with us live. I can see lots of you coming on in now. Drop me a hello so I can see you there in the comments. Or even if you are watching this back later, let me know what your key takeaways have been from any of the sessions that you've watched so far, whether you are still catching up. Yesterday's sessions from Charles Vogel, Rena Van Alst, and Gordon Straight, or if you have managed to get stuck into today's sessions with Dr. Alex and Ethan. I know a couple of you have reached out on email and in the Facebook group on the page here that you're concerned that you may have missed yesterday's sessions. That is not a problem. If you haven't watched them, they are still available for you to watch right up until the end of the summit. So just check your inbox. If you're registered, you will have the link that you need there. We have more sessions still to come for you. 2 more jam-packed days left of our Shared Space Summit. We are yet to hear from our New South Wales Building Commissioner, David Chandler. Kat Carmichael is still to come. She is the immediate past president of the Community Associations Institute in the US. We are still to hear from Sam Rees of Australian Apartment Advocacy. And one more special guest, me, Amanda Farmer. My session will be conducted a little bit differently to what you've been seeing so far. I will be giving my session by live webinar. So I'm going to let you know exactly when that's happening. It is this Friday at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. If you are registered for the summit, you will have received instructions on how you can get involved in that webinar. I would love for as many of you as possible to join me live at 11 o'clock on Friday. It is not here on the Facebook page. It is via Zoom webinar. That just makes it easier for me to see who's here, who's asking questions. I am answering some questions for you. In particular, the question, is my building dysfunctional? This is a question that I have been asked more and more frequently in recent times. I'm wondering if it is perhaps the COVID effect. What does it take? I'm being asked, Amanda, what does it take to convince the tribunal that our building is dysfunctional, that it is of the type that needs a compulsory manager appointed, a manager with all the powers of the owners corporation, an administrator, if you like? I'm answering that question. What does it take? And is it such a good thing for a building to have that kind of takeover of all of its powers? Do you really want that kind of result? Are there perhaps other ways to fix a broken community? So all of those questions I am answering for you in my live session at 11 a.m. on Friday. If you're registered for the summit but not yet the webinar, check your inbox. I think the email came through late yesterday afternoon, the instructions for how you can join the webinar. You do need to sign up specifically for the webinar to get your unique Zoom access link. We are all very well experienced with Zoom these days. But of course, any problems with that, if you haven't got that email or you're not sure, then reach out. Me and the team are here to make it easy for you. Now, the summit does end on Friday. And of course, I am planning a little virtual party for you right here on the Facebook page, complete with more special guests. Of course, some names and even some faces I'm sure you will recognize. We are planning that for 4 p.m. this Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You will hear more from me about that in your inbox over the next 2 days. But if you want to clear your schedule for Friday afternoon so you can come on by and celebrate here with us at the Summit Wrap session, the close of the summit, do go ahead and do that, 4 o'clock on Friday. And yes, let's make it a happy hour. The bar will be open. Amanda's bar will be open. We have all worked hard. We have learned so much this week. It will definitely be time to celebrate. Now, I am seeing lots of you coming on in for our Summit Live Action Session. I would love to know who is here. If you want to pop me a hello here in the comments, let me know if you want to get ready to give me your takeaways, your key takeaways from today's session, Alex, Ethan, or a session from yesterday, Charles, Rena, or Gordon. I am going to be bringing on very soon a couple of special guests who have been enjoying the summit just like you, alongside you, taking action, taking away some key action points that they're going to implement in their communities. And we're going to be talking about those with those special guests very, very soon. Now, if you are panicking, if you don't think that you will have the time to watch all of the summit sessions before Friday afternoon rolls around, stop panicking. There is a super easy way for you to get ongoing access to all of the summit sessions. Plus, you can snap up your summit souvenir playbook along the way. I'm already hearing from some people that they're very excited to see what is in the summit souvenir playbook. At the end of the summit, I am putting all of the summit sessions over in our membership. Members will have the summit sessions and all of the links and the resources shared by our summit guests over in their video library. If you are not yet a member, then you can head on over to stratamembership.com. For this week only, just while the summit is open, we are welcoming new members into our community. And for anyone who joins the membership this week, as part of the summit, I am gifting the Summit Souvenir Playbook. This is a complete list of key takeaways from each summit session and the suggested action steps that you can take in your communities to be implementing exactly what our summit guests are sharing in their interviews. So stratamembership.com is where you'll find all the details about membership, learn about the fabulous online community that we've built dedicated to improving your experience of apartment living. Okay, hello Evangeline. It is lovely to see you. Evangeline from Strata, looking forward to today's session. Fabulous. Thank you for being here, Evangeline. Evangeline is joining us from LinkedIn, which is cool. We do stream to Facebook and to LinkedIn, and my very clever software here tells me where you are, which is awesome. Wonderful. Now, speaking of fabulous community, it is time to bring in the first of my two special guests. Enjoying the summit alongside all of you and joining me here live today is Strata owner and committee member, Elizabeth Heusler. Here she is. Hey, Elizabeth.
Hey, good afternoon, Amanda.
Welcome to our Summit Action Session. It's fabulous to have you here with us. How have you been enjoying the summit so far?
I'm loving it so far. I must admit, I often get a little dejected and frustrated with Strata. But watching the sessions that I've been watching so far, and we're at the halfway mark, I'm buoyed with fresh enthusiasm and fresh insight. And I feel I've got so much more verve and energy just by some of the hints and tips and the energy, I suppose, that's being transmitted through the summit. And that's only the halfway point. So
Yes.
I think by Friday, I'll be on a real high.
Fabulous. That is exactly what I want to hear. It is all about this shared space summit. It is all about shifting your perspective. And you've just nailed it there. You're having that shift, aren't you? I can see it.
Already shifted. I've got some great ideas and lots of things to implement. I particularly was keen to hear Dr. Alex Morris this morning, and I was really looking forward to that. It was the first thing I did with my toast and coffee this morning, particularly because I do a lot of Zoom meetings. I love them. No parking, no traffic. I've been in isolation, and as have some of my colleagues, so we can work and carry on as we normally would. I'm surrounded by people who are vulnerable, immunocompromised, diabetics, asthmatics. So I don't want to mix. I'm trying very hard not to mix with anybody, because of all those reasons, and that is extremely evident in a strata community. But I still want to be engaged. I still want to have a good time. I still want to have fun. And that's what I particularly enjoyed about Dr. Morris this morning, because I thought, oh, I'd really like to have a cup of tea with her. And then I thought, I can.
Exactly.
So Zoom is fantastic for networking. And COVID is not going to go, as much as what she was saying about the situation in England, it's very different to here in Australia. Zoom, COVID isn't going to go away anytime soon. It's the new normal. We have to get used to it. We have to have meetings, particularly in Strata. The regulations oblige us to have meetings. So let's embrace it. And there were some great suggestions from Alex this morning. In my various Strata communities, we've definitely had more people. It's been terrific in some ways, and not so much in others. But like in everything in Strata, you have the good, the bad, the ugly. And across the range of stratas I'm with, I've seen everything from the very, very good and the beautifully managed to the bad, and then the downright ugly. So at the Zoom meetings, we've got more owners engaged. We've got more owners turning up. And I guess that's because some of the owners have said, oh, well, it's easy because I'm in the office. I don't have to drive into town. I don't have to park, and everything I've said before. We've got elderly, vulnerable, everything I've said before. People who are immunocompromised, or they're just sitting at home, and it's very easy to turn your computer on. And also people are very comfortable and they're used to being behind screens. Some of our Strata committee meetings have chat boxes going down the side. And whilst often you're not allowed to speak in a meeting unless you're invited to, you can comment on the chat box. So I think that's terrific. And even when we get to the point, or which we will one day, where we can have in-person meetings, and that will vary from state to state with 10 people or 20 people or whatever it is. I think those days of in-person meetings are over now that we've become so used to this, especially if you want inclusion. You want to, people at home with children, people working interstate, all of those things that come with inclusions. You want owners that wouldn't normally be able to come. You want the vulnerable, or as I said before, the immunocompromised, who would not go to an in-person meeting, but they will certainly attend a Zoom meeting.
What did you think, Elizabeth, about the suggestion, I think Alex and I were tossing it up between us, about some meetings being good for the virtual space and other meetings probably that should be happening face-to-face because of the content, because of the issue that's being decided? From your perspective as a committee member on a number of committees and as a Strata owner of a number of properties, what did you think of that idea?
Well, for everything that I've just said, I think all meetings have to be online. Because
you think they should all be online regardless?
I think everything should be online. COVID isn't going to go away anytime soon. Let's have that question again when we've completely eradicated COVID, and everyone has got a different opinion on when that is, but it's not around the corner. Let's have that conversation when we've eradicated COVID. That it's just not going to be anytime soon.
Yeah.
That's it. You can't have in-person meetings in the time of COVID. Why? Because I think it's anti-inclusion. You're then saying you can't come if you're elderly, vulnerable, have diabetes, asthmatic, if you live interstate, if you live overseas, if you have children, and on. It's exclusionist, not inclusion.
Yeah, wow. Interesting perspective. Yeah, I can definitely see how that plays out. What did you think, Elizabeth? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go on. I was just going to say, I think it also goes to Alex's point about having said that meetings have to be online. We have to get better at them. And it goes to your point, was it yesterday? No, this morning, about FOMO, about being more engaged in meetings, and making them more interesting. And it goes to the point of someone saying yesterday's send invitations out. In our Strata committee agendas, there's never an invitation to attend. And
isn't that good point?
And I think also part of one of the many things I get out of your site and out of the community and the Q&A, the things I'm not sure about, like when I bought my first Strata property, I didn't know you could go to meetings. I didn't know it was a thing. I thought it was
probably normal.
Some sort of secret society that maybe you got a tap on the shoulder. That was a very, very, very long time ago. It's still like that in some of the stratas I'm associated with. But in the olden days, I didn't have your community to check how that went and to check how that was. So I think we have to get better, and I think we have to, as I say, invite more people and be more inclusive and more welcoming.
I'd be very interested to hear from the Strata managers who are here, and I know there's a number of you. I can just see in the comments. I've said hello to Evangeline. Hi, Melissa, as well. And I would be interested to hear their thoughts on the inclusivity, I've got the word right, inclusion factor for online meetings. Are they becoming more difficult because we've got more people there, because we've got more voices, because we've got people who otherwise haven't really taken an interest in the building and they're suddenly turning up? Something that we talked about in Alex's session was the beginning of the meeting. Do we make space for that socializing or chit chat or the kind of thing that we used to do and do quite easily in person? Is there space for that? And I'm interested, Elizabeth, that with your virtual meetings, are you doing that? Are you missing that? That's often a place where people who aren't used to each other, or they're new to the community, or they haven't been involved before, but they now are, can get to know each other a little bit. What did you think of that idea?
Well, I do a lot of meetings and Zoom presentations and Zoom training sessions anyway.
Yes.
And that goes to my point about getting more used to doing Zoom. When you're running meetings professionally, you have all that built in. You have that question doesn't relate to what we're talking about, but I'll come back to it in the meeting room afterwards. There's a million ways around that. And I think if you're a Strata manager, as some of mine have not been the meetings are now going longer because more people are attending. Well, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Depends what the content is, I would say. Are we still being effective even with a longer meeting? Some matters need to be discussed. It takes longer.
You've just got more people coming. And I think that also goes to Alex's point about the agenda. I've got so many takeaways from the last 2 days, and one of the things I'm going to put forward in a motion is that we turn the agenda on its head, and that we start with owners' letters and owners' correspondence, and that should be the first item on the agenda, and that correspondence should be attached to the agenda. So if you've sent in correspondence, it's obviously a burning issue for you. no doubt your fellow owners will be interested as well. You're going to come to your burning issue. So what happens in all the stratas I'm involved in, the owner's correspondence is the last thing on the strata agendas. So
I see that too.
And I think that's, again, why I think this is so terrific. I didn't know you could change it. And again, which is why your community is so fantastic, because you get into the habit with strata of thinking it must be done that way. There must be a reason for it, because that's the way it's always been done. And a lot of things that have come up in the last couple of days, they've been blindingly simple, actually. But just because we didn't know that you could do that, it just shows that there can be more flexibility. I'm all for inclusion. I'm all for embracing more people involved in it. And if your strata committee says, well, I don't want more people to come to the meetings, I would be questioning the rationale about the committee and if they're the right people to be on the committee. And I would look at people on the committee that are saying, we want more involvement, we want more engagement.
Yep. Now, I'm seeing some more comments come through here, just to your points there, Elizabeth. Francis, hello. Francis is a manager, I believe. Francis is saying, thank you for running this. It's been amazing. Pleasure, Francis. I'm in a country area and considering offering cake to get them to come to meetings. Yes, fair enough. And I assume, Francis, in your area, maybe the take up of virtual hasn't been as strong as it's been here, because you haven't been in these hot spots that definitely Elizabeth and I are in. Melissa, another manager, saying feedback from the majority of my owners is how much they enjoy Zoom meetings, as it's so much easier for all. I always open meetings a little earlier to allow owners to say hi and get to know each other, and also happy to leave the Zoom open if they want to chat after the meeting too. Love it, Melissa. So exactly what we were talking about with Dr. Alex, you are putting into action there. That is what we want to see. Jason is saying we've seen a slight increase in participation at meetings as we've held via Zoom. Need to have some ground rules on how to make people speak, raise a hand, for instance, to speak so people don't talk over one another. Yes, I imagine that's a tough job for our strata managers when it comes to chairing meetings. Excellent. All right. Thank you, everybody, for that contribution. Anything else, Elizabeth, that you've taken from either of today's sessions, or that you wanted to share just generally as an experienced owner and committee member to make sure that we can take back to our own communities today?
Well, one of the things I thought, again, going from Alex's session, because as I say, I'm so Zoom meetings and everything is part of what I do every day. And I thought one of the great things about the Zoom meetings is you can record them. So the strata manager can record the meeting and send the recorded meeting around to all the owners. And I haven't seen any strata managers take advantage of that. And I have one poor strata manager who chairs the meeting, has to take the minutes, and there's a chat bot that runs along the side and has to answer the chat box at the same time. I would doubt that she can do those three things ideally at the same time. It's a less than ideal scenario. So I think, why doesn't she just press the record button and send everyone a copy of the recording? And also, a lot of people are more comfortable behind a keyboard. I say that my background is in communications, and a lot of people have trouble speaking in public. And I'll speak on behalf of Jimmy Thompson, who won't mind because you've got him on tomorrow. He's very experienced in Strata, and he wrote an article in the Fin Review a while ago about how he even is unsure when he's speaking at his own Strata committee meeting. And I've heard many people in my Stratas that are too scared to speak up. And even some that do, that you can hear their voices are quavering and they're trembling and terror. You mustn't forget there are people that are terrified of speaking in public, and they're terrified of being the minority in Strata, or being laughed at, or being ridiculed, which has happened in some of my Strata meetings, where people are laughed out at meetings and they're ridiculed and they're being embarrassed at meetings. So again, why I think Zoom is fantastic for that, because it takes that it takes that emotiveness out of it. I was speaking to one of the NCAT members, and he said it's much NCAT mediation is much quicker by Zoom because they do it all by telephone. He said because it takes all the emotion out of it.
Yeah, so interesting.
It's got much more good points. I just can't see any negatives. And again, with COVID going forward, I would almost think it's irresponsible to have an in-room meeting. I can't see.
Yes, I am hearing from some clients and some members in the community actually that it is not possible for them to have meetings from time to time if there's a lockdown or if there's an outbreak because their strata manager or their strata committee doesn't facilitate electronic meetings. And I think, oh, okay, this is time to get with the program, guys. We shouldn't be having to delay having meetings because we don't have the technology in place these days. I'm seeing a comment there from Megan, a very good comment. Are there privacy issues with recordings? Don't they need to be securely stored, etc.? Yes, very good point, Megan. It's something that comes up before me regularly. Can we record if not everybody agrees? The strata manager doesn't want to record. If there's a recording, is it a record of the owner's corporation that is then accessible? I imagine these issues, if they're coming up in your communities, Elizabeth, are these questions being asked if meetings are recorded, or perhaps they're the reason why meetings are not recorded?
Yes, absolutely. And it goes to my background. I have a communications consultant and we're all journalists, so we're very aware of the legislation around that. And you can record as long as you let everybody know it's being recorded. And by letting them know it's being recorded, that is permission. If you don't want your voice recorded, there's a very simple way around that. You just shut up.
Stick to the chat box.
That's right.
Yeah, so and definitely, Megan.
Sorry, yeah. And that's the privacy regulation. And as
great.
When it's the same as when you're recording interviews, and it's quite interesting. You have to let the other person know that they're being recorded. And in the old days, you always had a microphone and you just banged your microphone. I can always remember doing it. You just bang your microphone down on the table, and that's sufficient to know that you're being recorded because there's a microphone on the table. But these days with mobile phones and other things, what's illegal is recording without the other person's knowledge. So there is an argument, if you've got your mobile phone on the table, you can say there's a recording device on the table.
Yeah, gets a bit sticky. And definitely storage and production of that record is another issue. Megan's talking about secure storage there. Yes, with Zoom in particular, I know you have the option to store in the cloud. You're essentially storing it on Zoom servers, or you're storing it on your own computer. If you're the Strata manager, it can be downloaded there. Absolutely, that recording needs to become part of the owner's books and records. In New South Wales, we have very strict rules about those records then being available to inspect, and I assume those rules are very similar all around the country. That's something that I think some committees, for whatever reason, I'm happy for all my meetings to be recorded. I record my client meetings. Client gets a copy of it. I think if you're going to say something in a meeting, there's no reason not to record it. And as you say, Elizabeth, a very good record that you can then have if other owners want to understand what's going on, particularly in committee meetings that they might not be part of.
Well, I imagine the chat box, because that's a document, and that's part of
definitely
having a chat box in a meeting. So that has to stay as part of the record for 7 years, if I remember that correctly. Thank you.
Got it, babe. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth, for taking the time to join us today to share what you're taking away from the summit. It's always helpful for others who are strata owners like you are, who are committee members, understanding that hey, we are all in this together. We're all thinking the same things. We all have the same questions, and they do have support here with us. So thank you very much.
I can't wait for day 2. Day 3.
Yeah, day 3. I know it comes around fast. Yep, day 3. Here we come. All righty. Thank you. I'm going to do my Zoom wave.
Bye.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And as I said, wow, okay, so much there. Lots there on Dr. Alex's session. If you haven't yet caught her session, all about virtual meetings, released today, do check it out. So many takeaways there from Elizabeth. Now, I said that I had not one, but two guests for you today. So it is absolutely time to welcome in my second guest. His name is Colin Campbell. Colin is the chairman of a 186-lot strata scheme in central Sydney. And Colin, together with his wife Joanne, bought in over 20 years ago. And in their time, this is what Colin tells me, they have seen dysfunctional general meetings, an administrator appointed, I was talking about that earlier, hundreds of thousands of dollars spent with lawyers, not plumbers, Colin says, fire orders, new strata managers, new building manager, ever increasing strata levies. And Colin says, after all of this, we never seemed to get any further on and the fighting never stopped. But getting onto the committee and now being the chairperson has opened Colin's eyes to doing things differently. Now, very interestingly, Colin is a sheep and beef farmer, orchardist, and viticulturalist. I practiced, still didn't get it out, an educator living in New Zealand. He is a fellow of the Institute of Managers and Leaders in Australia and New Zealand. He is the chairman of a 6,000 member, 120-year-old community pharmacy. Living and speaking to us today from Napier in New Zealand, Colin Campbell. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. What a great start. I was scared about waving because after I looked at Alex and I heard about that serendipitous knowledge transfer, I thought, wow, yeah, we're onto something here. We're really onto something.
Yes, that was in my notes too, the serendipitous knowledge transfer, which is when you are coming and going from a meeting in person and you haven't started the meeting, you're not really talking about the motions or the agenda, but you're gathering information about the community. You're understanding what's been going on in the background while maybe you've been away or you're an investor, you're not there all the time. And what Alex and I were talking about was, are we missing that from our virtual meetings? So yeah, that was definitely one of my key perspective shifts that I had written down for Alex as well.
Yeah, and the upshot for me was, and I noticed when we did our very first Zoom meeting and we got together again as a group, how everyone just started chatting because we physically knew each other. So that makes a big difference. And
yeah,
we had to stop that to start the meeting. So it was great. And now I've got a name that I can put to it. So I feel really great about that.
Yeah, we've got a few smart terms from Alex, haven't we?
Oh, we did. And I had another one, which Elizabeth cottoned onto as well. And that was about just mixing up the agenda to make it more fun, and putting the less engaging stuff at the back and the more engaging stuff at the beginning. I mean, it sounds very logical, but you get these minutes dished up to you by the strata managers and the agendas and what have you. So they're almost cast in stone almost. And, easy to change around. Why not? And I think that goes back to what you're talking about really is shifting our perspective, isn't it? It's really taking us to a new place. And the real reason is, well, why can't we? What's stopping us from doing this?
Yeah.
And that's where these speakers like of Alex were really challenging. I mean, the other one that interested me was when she talked about safety. She talked about people's safety and how, coming out from COVID, getting back into meetings, we've got to be really conscious of that. And I was wandering down the street here in Napier today, and it's really funny because the social distancing thing is going on, and it's almost like you feel like a leper because everybody gives you about a metre gap, and they walk around you, or they'll stop in doorways for you to come through, and all of those sort of things are going on, and you just suddenly realise that life has changed, and we just got to take that into account.
Definitely. And changed more for some than for others. You being in New Zealand, having a different experience perhaps of the crisis of the pandemic. If staying 1.5 meters away from each other, walking down the street is the worst of it, then you're doing quite well. And I know we still have here in a lot of our Victorians still locked away and unable to live their lives as they have been. So as Elizabeth says, our meetings, our electronic meetings, never more important and never more important to be getting them right.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where it also sort of changed back to Charles' point also, because he was talking about things like community and groups. And I actually, once you brought his name up, I actually went out and bought the book too and had a read.
Yes.
And
Awesome.
so that was it was a really interesting read. And when you start to really put it in the perspective of Strata, there's some good ideas there. And what's really interesting for me, and it picks up on Elizabeth's point, is that I know you've interviewed these people all separately, so they have not, I believe, listened to each other. Is that fair?
They have not. No.
They haven't. And yet they are picking up some of the core essence. Each one of them is touching on a core factor that others have also addressed. And I think that's amazing. And particularly where you got people from the US, from London, from Sydney, and all of a sudden you're picking up on some core factors.
Do you know where I particularly saw that? I mean, you're exactly right. And that strikes me in every one of the interviews. And where I saw that quite clearly as well was with Ethan Burns' interview, which was released today also on sustainability in apartments, and Gordon Strait. So Gordon, being an experienced committee member, a chairperson, just like you, Colin, and having gone through a number of these projects, and they were both talking about future, and Gordon talks about the two futures and having to collect the data for your project so you can tell a story about what the future might look like for your building if you choose option A to do this project, or option B to do that project, or option C to do nothing. And that's exactly what Ethan was talking about as well. Getting out your Excel spreadsheet, start collecting the data so you know your building's baseline, and then working out, if we do this project, what does the future look like? If we don't do it, what does it look like? And that's then the story that you need to tell to the owners if you want support for that kind of project.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the sort of sayings that I've clicked onto over the years is that the role of a leader is to rally people to a better future. So, as a leader, you're rallying people to a better future. And the role of a manager is the catalyst to ensure that process is actually achieved. Now, that's one of the core things in Strata. If you said, what is our future? I suppose the closest thing you've got to it's about a 10-year plan, 10-year capital plan.
Yep.
There's nothing else that would say that, our building's going to look like this. And yet Gordon touched on it. He did it beautifully when he talked about how they changed the doors in his building.
Yep.
Now, before we came on air, you and I were both talking, and I said to you at the time, I said that I felt that Gordon was, I would say he's my twin brother, because funnily enough, look at this.
Are these doors that you're doing?
They're doors.
Yay.
In our building. And that just came to me yesterday from our architect, and we'll talk about it a bit later. But here he's already done it, and we separately are doing it. Didn't know each other, et cetera, and we've followed exactly the same process. Where did it come from? It didn't come out of a book, because it doesn't exist. The Strata book for this doesn't exist, and I'm really looking forward to read the playbook. I think you've absolutely nailed it.
Excellent.
Because we need a better playbook.
Yeah. So, well, thank you. And that's why I love bringing people like you, like Gordon, like our guests from the summit, like all the members inside our community together. So you can be talking about these things. This is what Gordon's doing. This is what Colin's doing. Oh, well, would you look at that? It's the same thing. Or we want to achieve the same goals. And Gordon's done it, and he's got the path for a building like yours, who hasn't done it before. You have so much experience, Colin, as a chairperson in a building like yours, and I do know your building. It's a big one. It's had its history, and you've learned so much from that experience. If you don't mind, I wouldn't mind delving in a little bit into that role of the chairperson and what your experience has been over the years with your ups and downs. As you say, it's a topic that we really do need to dig into more, and it's something that I want to focus on with the podcast and with our live sessions in future. Can I ask you why you put your hand up to be the chairperson in a building that seemed to be having some problems?
It was actually by default, because what happens in most stratas is that, and I say most, I mean, I'll talk about ours, but the chairperson, when they don't own any property anymore, suddenly is not the chairperson. So they can be there 1 minute and they can be absolutely gone the next. So you're getting someone with 10 years of history, gone. So there's nothing in there that sort of allows you to naturally help or assist an incoming chairman. You know, it's not an ascending platform like it is in business. And so I took the role on. I was interested in just trying to turn the building around. We were a quite litigious building. You know, the word NCAT, I've never been to NCAT. We've talked about it, but I refuse to go. I don't want to go. I want to sort it out. And so, and I can tell you a couple of little things that we've done that have stopped us going to NCAT and turned the tides a little bit. But your question about being chairman, I was happy to put my hand up. And then, but what I was really surprised about is in Strata, and this is the conversation from some senior people, they would say to you, the chairman has no power in Strata, the secretary has all the power. If you look at the Act, the secretary has the power, the chairman has no power. So, and then you've got the power of the Strata manager. So you'd almost, the Strata is set up in a way that the chairman is almost just a figurehead. And because there's no need to do any long-term future planning, then that works. But suddenly you want to have a Strata that is really going out there and doing something. You need somebody, and it may not be the chairman, but you need somebody that's got a vision for the building, a vision for where you want to go. And that includes things like Ethan's work that he did around water and power. You know, it includes things like lighting. It includes things like security. It includes things like gymnasiums and pools and all of those things. You know, I mean, if you look at swimming pools, if you took one as an example, are they safe? You know, are they clean? All of those sort of things. But yeah, so as a chairman, coming back to that point, wanted to get in and have a go, and people were happy to let me do it. So off we went. And my first task was the bylaws.
Right.
So I said to them, I wanted to learn how it works. So I took the bylaws on, and I went and met this amazing lawyer called Alison Benson.
Oh, yay. We love Alison.
I said to Alison, look, I'll bring you a coffee if I can come and meet you and talk to you for an hour. And she said, yes. Well, she doesn't drink coffee, Alison. Yeah, so
generous gal.
We went and met, and I said to her, I want a set of bylaws that read like a book. And the owner is the most important, so they're at the front. The developer, I don't give a toss about. He's already gone. He's at the back of the book. And then in the middle of the book is things like Mrs. Jones's balcony's been changed and da-da-da. They can be in the middle of the book.
Yep.
So Alison said, fine, I can do that for you. And we did. And she did it, and we flicked it backwards and forwards. And that's how bylaws read. They read like a book.
Yes. And you have tapped into the primacy effect there as well. Do you remember that from Alex's session? The primacy and recency effect. We, as humans, we remember the first thing and the last thing. So let's put the important stuff at the beginning of our meeting agendas and at the beginning of our bylaws. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. But the bylaw is really the rule. I mean, it's the vision and character or essence, and in New Zealand we have a Maori term called wairua, and that term would be something like, if I come to your house, do I take my shoes off when I come inside? Do you offer me a cup of tea and biscuits or food, and do we sit down and chat? And so on. So it's a set of rules that sort of exist, and as a person coming to your house, my obligation is to meet your rules. I'm not coming into your house to enforce on you my rules. So in terms of the bylaws, I think it's important that we sit down with people and talk about what we value. We value the fact that it's safe. We value the fact that we can sit back and enjoy quiet and peaceful and da-da-da. The bylaw says X. Yep. The bylaw isn't a value, it's a rule. So at the very beginning, and this is again, Gordon stolen my thunder, he has a book. We're just finishing the book.
Yeah. And yeah, on yesterday's session, just so I can tell our viewers who may not have caught our live session at 2:00 yesterday, which is down below here on the page, you can catch the replay. Gordon was actually one of our special guests, and he held up his residence handbook that he has prepared with his committee, which looks lovely and glossy, and it's got photos and pictures, and he says it's just getting longer and longer. But it's fantastic to have put together something like that.
Yeah. And the second thing in there that we moved on to was who pays. I mean, one of the big things in Strata is people get really anti when they expect that the Strata will pay for things. And then the Strata manager writes back and says, no, we don't. And then there's an argument and it goes backwards and forwards. So what we did to stop that is we sat down, and Strata Community Australia did a great book called Who Pays?
Okay, I haven't come across that.
They've just updated it in 2020. It's one of the best publications next to your new playbook that exists in Strata. I would absolutely endorse anyone to join Strata Community Australia for whatever it is, it's a small amount, just to get that text. Now, what we did...
We will find that, and we will pop the link in here.
Oh, it is brilliant, because it goes through and very clearly identifies who pays for things. So if there's a leak, it's you. If it's whatever, you know. Now, you can rewrite that book for your own Strata, because obviously it's been written very generically to take into account the age of Strata from sort of 1964, but easily done. Now, what we found, which is really interesting, is we were sitting around debating a book, not debating whether Mrs. Jones gets paid or not. We were debating the book as a committee and as Strata managers. And you know what? In some areas, we didn't agree. So what was really interesting to me observing that discussion was that if you're an owner and you come in and you get this sort of differing advice, no wonder people are not happy.
Yeah.
So if you sort it out earlier and clear it up, and then you add it to your bylaws and that new lovely book that we're doing, and you give it to us and say, look, there it is. If you any queries, come and ask us. It's just how it is.
And exactly what Charles was talking about in yesterday's session about having that communication with owners as part of the welcome, and having that ritual around welcoming and sharing with them this information, so that when something does happen, you've already got that foundation of information there.
Yeah. Another area is the 10-year plan, because the 10-year plan really lays out where you're going to go in the future, what your building's going to look like, and the things that you need to do and the money you need to spend. And often our 10-year plan was done by an engineer and a quantity surveyor, which is how they're normally done. But what we've done now for our new one is we've gone to an architect and said, look, here's our values, here's our building, what do you think? And bear in mind that we're going to be spending money on carpet and on paint and on lighting and LED and stuff like that. So how would you do that? And he's, well, actually Tanya has come up with this great concept for our building. And again, throwing it back to Gordon, he talked about painting the hallways and suddenly the building lifted. And so we're choosing the right colours. Instead of sitting as a committee and discussing the colour of the hallway, which generally is what happens, or the new carpet, you get 4 swatches and people go, I like that one. It takes the thump out of that. And so our role then is to actually then work the picture up around that concept and then plan out the stages of how we're going to introduce that into the building. So, for example, again, we could spend the money on pumps and various other things, but we could bring some of this forward. So, and at the moment with COVID, security is a big issue. People are feeling unsafe. And whether it's a reality or not, I don't know, but they're just simply feeling unsafe. So we're revamping our security camera system and renewing it as part of that process. So again, the value drove us to do it. We needed to do it. It was in the plan, and it's in the architectural plan. So it all suddenly just meshes together like that.
And you can see how if you spent the time as a community establishing and then writing down that perhaps one of your values was addressing the climate change emergency and investing in sustainable infrastructure. And if that's one of your values that you've stated it, we are going to do something about this. You can then go from there to plan your project, linking your project back to your values, and in your capital works fund forecast and your plan for the next 10 years, make sure at what point in each year are we saving money to be able to address, meet, live out our values for our community.
Absolutely. Really we're just embarking on a big rooftop project, new spa, pool, gym. And it taught me a lot of lessons about how to approach it differently, because it's easier to debate something in its infancy when you're talking about a concept and an idea than when you're wanting to do the vote to get the common property through, and suddenly someone goes, no, not going to have it happen, won't happen in our building. And so best to get rid of it way early on, or alternatively allow people to come out very clearly where they stand. So, you know, there's no hidden agendas here. People have every right to disagree. And we know where they stand, and then we all act accordingly. Because it's one of the crazy rules of Strata is that 50% doesn't get you over the line.
Yeah.
In a number of cases.
Yeah. That's a crazy, Strata, you think that's a crazy rule?
It is a crazy rule when certain owners in a building can hold anything between 70 and 20% of the strata.
Yeah.
Because that way you've got to get almost your 70, 80% voting for to simply nullify the 20% against, if you like.
Yes.
And where it's really crazy is we had one where we have a gym on our roof and we wanted to shift the gym. It's getting pulled down, rebuilt. We wanted to shift it. So it's not it's a new gym, but shift it 1 foot. Let's say it wasn't actually. We turned it around so it gave us some views. You know what? We couldn't do it because one owner objected, and that owner we couldn't get past that no more than 25% against. Now, we worked on it. It took us 3 years. We just about went to court, but we didn't, and we finally got it through. But it took us two odd years, and again, I really reflect, and I'm sorry for those that didn't see Gordon yesterday, but Gordon commented how in some buildings, you know, you're making some great strides, and then all of a sudden, nah, doesn't happen. And it's almost a tragedy, really.
When you're certainly putting so much work in, and Gordon talked about being able to tell the story, again, back to telling the story and explaining what the two futures would be, displaying what the data is delivering. So bringing all these components in to the project, you've got to sell it to the community if you want it to happen.
Absolutely. Now, I'd like to also reach out, Amanda, to the Strata managers that are out there.
Go for it.
I truly, truly feel for the Strata managers. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they subject themselves to some of the abuse, the complaints, and the young people, you know, getting into this career. It's a difficult one to be in. And to be fair, for some, and the really good ones, they're managing a lot of stratas.
Yep.
You know, they're not managing one or two. You know, I'd like, it's not something that's discussed openly, but, you know, 15 to 20 would be around the numbers, if not more.
Yeah, well,
Now,
there's
what
a few
really is,
strata managers here. Drop your numbers in, guys.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and how can you lead? How can you be in charge of 20 different businesses, which they are, with all the
Yep.
conflict, all the issues, and everything like that, and give it your all? It just can't work. It cannot work. And I reach out to those people and I just say, hang in there. There are people like me that really care about you, and I care about you a lot.
Yeah.
And more particularly, I'm seeing a lot of young women coming into Strata, and that's great.
Absolutely.
When I became chairman, I got rid of our Strata manager, and we appointed our first ever female Strata manager in our building. And sadly, she got poached to go out to another industry, and
the good ones.
straight away I grabbed another one.
Yeah.
And she got poached to go out to another industry.
That's the other thing that happens, isn't it?
So
yeah,
absolutely great. And I had one of our owners, who's a lovely woman. She has the Order of Australia, actually, and she's done a lot of work in women's affairs. And she said to me, Colin, how many women are on your committee? I said, 30%. 30% are women. I said, but you've asked me the wrong question. I said, how many women are in power or positions of authority on our strata? 60%.
Okay.
Treasurer, we've got an auditor.
Right. Right. They take the top positions.
Strata manager.
Good. Yep.
A woman.
Yeah,
and
that's
I
it.
believe it's actually changed. It's changed the atmosphere and how we manage. It's changed the way we manage. Okay. And it was very deliberate. I did it deliberately when I came on board. And I take my hat off because the girls are doing a great job. They tend to settle things down. They tend to focus it better. And then we just get on with the job. And I think it's...
There you go. I knew there was a reason I like you, Colin. It's not just because you're a fabulous chairperson. We've got some comments coming in here. I did invite the strata managers to chime in, and we have Ro saying some strata managers deserve empathy. Some should be deregistered. Unfortunately, yes. Evangeline is saying someone has to do it. Yes. Well, you guys, I'm so glad, Colin, that you put that thanks out there, because I say it often too. It is a job that I do not envy. It is a difficult one. I don't think you're anywhere near respected enough. I think you could be charging a lot more, and the professionalism aspect is a whole nother conversation when it comes to strata management. And Francis is saying, thank you, Colin. Some of the abuse is incredible. It's people like you that make our job worthwhile. Lovely. And that is a fabulous place on which I think to end our chat here, Colin. There is, I know, so much more that we could dig into, and I think you and I are going to spend some time, whether it's on a podcast or another live chat, or maybe a Zoom session. We could do a chairperson's education session, I think. Maybe we could get Gordon involved in that too. The twin guys and some women. Let's get some women chairs and women secretaries involved, sharing all of this very helpful information. So much action there. I think people will be going back and having a closer listen to this. Thank you so much, Colin. Enjoy the rest of the summit, hey?
I will, and thank you so much, Amanda. And I'm sure I'll send you over a bottle of our very nice wine to sit down and relax at the very end of this.
There you go.
We might just organise that.
Sounds good. I know how to pick him, I tell you what. Thanks, Colin. See you. Bye. Oh, excellent. Wow. There are just so many very experienced owners, committee members, people who are doing the hard work in our strata schemes. And I'm just thrilled that we're able to chat with them, to hear from all of them here at the Shared Space Summit. Wow, the summit is not just about information. It's not just about hearing what our ideas from our special guest experts. It is about action. And that is what these live action sessions here are for. Every morning after the summit sessions are released, what you will see here on this page is that we're posting a headshot for each of our guests. And that is a great place for you to share your key takeaways, any action steps that you're taking, how you're implementing those lessons that you're learning from the summit sessions. Really good place to post them there so I can make sure that we come back to them in our 2 p.m. live. We can chat about them. You can put some questions there as well. Go right on ahead and do that. You'll see this morning's sessions further down the page. Now we are so close, guys. I'm waiting for a little bell to ring here. Rochelle will let me know. I know she's checking the list. We are so close to the magic number. 1,000 people almost registered for this summit. Those numbers are ticking up. I'm seeing some nines there. It's very exciting. As soon as we reach 1,000 people registered, you will be the first to know. We'll give you a big hurrah. If you like what you're hearing in the sessions, if you like what you're hearing here in the live action sessions, if you know your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues, your clients, if you're a Strata manager, will benefit from this kind of information, then please do go ahead and encourage them to register for the summit. They can still get access to the sessions if they register this week. I want to say a special thanks to Ella Sheldon at the Knight, Owners Corporation Managers in Victoria. Further down this page, you will see the post that Ella put on the Knight's Facebook page yesterday. There is some inspiration there for you if you're wanting to share the details of the summit with your circles. Rochelle is going to pop the registration link for the summit in the comments here, and that is the link to share, okay, to your Facebook page, to your email list, to your next door neighbor. This is the largest online gathering of strata property owners in the world. In the world, guys. Let's do this. Now, I am continuing on here in my role as your summit mentor. If you want more after the summit ends on Friday, then the place to be is with us inside the membership. That is a place where people just like you, like Elizabeth, like Colin, whether they're committee members, owners, investors, strata managers, the membership is definitely for strata managers. That is where they are accessing the guidance, the information, the resources, the support that they need to get the best out of this crazy world that we call apartment living. So stratamembership.com is the place to go to find out more about membership. I would love to welcome you all on the inside. It is time to get stuck into more summit sessions. If you haven't watched all of them yet, those that have been released, get ready for new sessions being released tomorrow. I will be back here at 2 p.m. tomorrow live with more special guests. I have a couple of crackers for you tomorrow. It's going to be a big one. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. I will see you then. Zoom wave. Bye.